Number 10. The Brazen Bull. Also known as the Sicilian Bull, this brutal punishment was around in ancient Greece. How do we know? The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote about it in one of his many history books that covered various cultures of the time. He writes that a bull would be fashioned out of bronze to almost the same size as a real bull. There was a door in the side of the thing, through which people who were given the death penalty would be shoved. A fire was then lit under the bull, and the person was roasted to death. It's even said that the bull was designed in a way so that the screams would be emitted to onlookers. If Iron Maiden. You might have already heard of the name if you're into heavy metal music. It's thought that the first of them was a 14th century Germanic invention, but throughout the following centuries, many historians would write about these devilish things. They kinda look like an Egyptian mummy, but the inside of the door is festooned with spikes. When it's closed, the person in the casket is impaled. As we said, some historians write that these things may not have been used or used often, but they certainly existed. Others write that they were talked about a lot in the 18th and 19th centuries. Number 8. Crucifixion. We probably should have included this in the first show, as it is a terrible way to die. As you'll know from reading Christian history, crucifixion involved tying or nailing a naked person to a wooden beam. The person would then be left to die slowly. That's how Jesus Christ ended up. What you might not know is that there were many ways to crucify a person. Perhaps a good scenario was being nailed to a tree, but much worse was being impaled on a spike and left to die. Spanish donkey. This is a donkey no man or woman would ever want to ride. If you saw our first show, the way someone would be tortured is similar to that of the Judas cradle. Prisoners would be sat on what looks like a triangular-shaped block of wood. This wood might have nails on the ridge. They would be lowered down onto the sharpened ridge and sometimes pulled down by weights, which would cause excruciating pain. Some sources say this could result in the person being cut apart and dying, others say it just crippled a person. Crocodile shears. Men, of course, did not escape such barbaric punishments related to their manhood. Crocodile shears were iron tubes with teeth on the inside. They would be heated up and clamped on a man's penis as if it was the mouth of a crocodile. This would result in castration, but again, in those days, such a punishment often meant a slow death from infection. The Chinese torture chair. Okay, so this is another piece of horror apparatus that may have been used only to scare the living daylights out of a populace. Jigsaw, from the Saw franchise, would have been envious of this chair had he been real, of course. We actually found one of them on a museum website with the present owner listed, so they did exist. The chair is made from wood with 12 steel blades in the arm, back and footrests, and seat. It's said in Europe a chair was used, although we refer to that simply as the iron chair. This might have had 500 to 1500 spikes for the victims to sit on. Chinese water torture. You might be thinking, what is this doing here among instruments that cause extreme physical pain? Well, perhaps being sent crazy slowly might be even worse than losing a body part or two. The torture consists of slowly dripping water on one part of the head, and apparently, after enough time, this will become absolutely unbearable, making the victim mad. Coffin torture. The problem with this is the fact that it took you ages to die. It was very popular in the Middle Ages and used to scare people away from committing crimes. Victims would be hung up from a beam or tree inside a kind of coffin, a wooden prison with holes in it. It would be so small that the person was bent into a painful position. They were then just left there. People might throw stuff at them, prod them with sticks, etc., and they would stay there until they slowly died. Scaphism. One of the more creative tortures that has ever existed, this Persian method of execution is like no other. The victim was forced to eat a large amount of milk and honey, so much he would throw up, attracting ants and vermin. He was also covered in honey. Apparently, most of this honey would be smeared around the eyes, nose, mouth, and genitals, and also in the ears and the anus. He would then be tied between two boats in a stagnant piece of shallow water, where he would be feasted on by all manner of insects and four-legged scavengers.